Welcome back to another episode of Living Well with Janet, where we explore what it means to live well. Key among the factors of a life well lived are our social relationships. A lot of studies have shown that a big marker for happiness and a sense of wellness are the social connections and the relationships that we have in our lives. And what relationship is more important than that with your life partner? Some of us are lucky enough to meet our person in school or through, natural social connections, through friends of friends. But the vast majority of us are navigating the chaotic, sometimes overwhelming, and downright challenging experience of modern dating. So today's episode is going to be dedicated to this topic. Today, I have a very special guest, Yue, who is an LA-based dating expert, author, and content producer. She is the co-host of the Dateable podcast, one of the longest-running and top dating podcasts, according to the New York Times, HuffPost, Oprah Daily, and more. Yue and her co-host, Julie, were active daters who were burnt out, confused, and frustrated by their own experiences with dating. I can definitely relate.
Yeah.
So they decided to really dig into the challenge to better understand all the facets of dating. Over the last decade, they have talked to thousands of modern daters and world-renowned experts, and even recently wrote a book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The book is called How to Be Dateable. I have a bunch of questions because I went through that book and it's amazing. But they believe they figured out how to navigate modern dating. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, Janet. I've been following your journey too, so we have so much to talk about.
Yes, we do. But before we get into the dating content, I always want to ask my guests, what is a current wellness practice that you're really into at the moment?
I am studying some energy work right now.
Ooh, okay.
And I used to think, like, if you asked me 5 years ago, I'm like, that's so woo-woo. Like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah, yeah.
energy? But then I had to take it back to my ancestors, like this idea of qi, of energy in Chinese culture and how it's been around for so long. And my grandma used to practice Tai Chi with me. And I always thought it was just kind of a silly practice.
Yeah.
But now I see that energy is everything.
Oh my gosh, my grandpa used to do Chai Chi too.
But it's like, didn't you think it was just so weird?
Yeah, I was like, what is he doing in the backyard moving so slowly? And
My grandma would do Tai Chi and fart at the same time. And she's like, I'm pushing the chi out
Oh my
of
God,
my
that
body.
makes so much sense.
And I used to be like, that. My grandma's doing her farting thing again. But now I realize we're just all walking balls of energy.
Yeah.
And I've been feeling a little bit of stuck energy in me, and I wanted to see what that meant.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the practice I've been doing. I'm looking at like Reiki, but also just how do I access more earth energy and then cosmic energy.
Oh, so like earth meaning like grounded.
Grounded.
And then cosmic, what is the cosmic aspect of it?
The cosmic aspect of energy brings in more creativity and clarity. And the earth energy brings in more of this authenticity and groundedness. And when you combine both of those energies, you are just unstoppable. I used to think I had to share every little detail with everybody about what I was going through.
Yeah.
Now I realize it's just energy I need to intentionally let out and then access that new, refreshed energy. And I don't necessarily need to be exposing other people to that stuck energy.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that's kind of hard to practice, especially because of the work that you do. Like part of what you do is share about your experiences.
Yeah.
But I love that for you. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
So kicking us off into the dating topic or this conversation, I want to know, are you currently in a relationship?
I am. I am in a relationship, and this is actually kind of, you might find it relatable.
Yeah.
So, I was in a 5-year relationship that ended in infidelity, and it was not great.
Yeah.
But it made me relook at relationships altogether. So 6 months after this relationship ended, someone who's been in my life for almost 8 years reappeared in my life in a different way.
Oh.
And we started hanging out, spending some time together. And I pretty much proposed this like trial period relationship.
Okay.
30 days. Completely monogamous, exclusive, give everything you got, make it the most epic relationship possible. End of 30 days, renew or cancel.
Oh, okay. I like that. So you're putting a like decisive timeline to it. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Because what got me in my last relationship was this forever, was this
Oh, I see.
daunting
I see.
future.
Yes, I can relate to that feeling daunting. Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, you want it.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, there's so many unknowns.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I got stuck in that idea of this unknown future
Mm,
that took me away from the presence of the relationship.
yeah, I
Does not
see. I
excuse
see.
his infidelity,
Right.
but it sure gave me a lot of clarity into what I want out of relationships.
Mm,
And I know that in my new relationship, when we first started talking about, possibly dating,
yeah,
I wanted to be intentional first and foremost. I didn't want to fall into a relationship again.
yeah.
But two, I wanted an end date. I
Mm,
wanted to know that I'm making the best possible situation I can within a certain amount of time.
yeah. Why 30 days?
At the time, it just felt like that's all I could handle. You know,
Totally fair.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like 6 months out of this 5-year relationship,
Yeah.
I was just finding my groove again.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought 30 days is the most I can handle. And also, I felt like 30 days is enough for us to establish some sort of habits,
Yeah.
like we see each other
Mm,
Wednesdays and Fridays or whatever that could be, a
right.
ritual. And also enough for me to gauge a deeper connection with someone. So the 30 days, we renewed. That
Yeah.
became 6 months. So we're like, okay,
Oh,
we
okay.
can
So
do
you
this
do a
for the
check-in and then you
yeah,
just like set like finite dates. Right,
correct.
right. Okay.
And so we just kept renewing, kept renewing. So now it's
Mm.
been a little bit over a year.
Oh,
And
wow.
I would say it is the most intentional relationship I've ever been
Yeah.
in, but also the most private relationship. And this
Ah,
is where I think you and I can relate a little bit.
yes.
There's something so precious about a relationship that if
Yeah.
you keep it private, it seems like it can develop in a more organic way
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
exposing it to the elements.
Yes.
So it's been a very private relationship, and I'm very happy to keep it on the DL.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you feel like in relationships you were in before, were you, when you say private, is it like sharing it on social media, sharing it with your friends, or like in what capacity was that? It
Both.
was happening in both ways.
Both.
Okay.
Because when you have a dating podcast,
Yeah,
of
right?
course you're going to talk about your partners,
Right.
and sometimes you expose their identities. And
Yeah.
in my 5-year relationship, he was very much at the forefront of my story.
Ah, I see, I see.
So we would,
Yeah.
I mean, during the pandemic, I still remember we were at a Ranch 99. Both of us had masks on. And
Yeah.
this woman went up to him, was like, "Are you Yue's boyfriend?" Because I had
Oh.
exposed him to
Yeah,
people. Even with
yeah.
the mask on, she
Could
identified him.
recognize. Yeah.
I didn't want that again. I
Yeah.
felt like it was almost like when you put your relationship out there, I have this superstition that other people put their energy
Mm.
onto your relationship.
I had not thought about it that way. And it's interesting kind of hearing you, A, like share this kind of thinking or experience, and then B, like articulate your reasons why. Because I was in a relationship after the very long relationship of the guy that I had like shared very openly on social media.
Mhm.
But I couldn't quite explain why. I'm like, I don't really regret sharing him. I felt like it was like very much a part of my life story. But I'm like, why do I feel a little bit exposed now,
Mhm.
having done that? And so I like your learning of kind of like, I mean, whether someone is on social media actively as a public figure or not, like maybe just keeping things private, even like taking time before you introduce them to your friends or, yeah.
Correct.
Is
Yes.
that, I mean, how did you approach with this person? And it sounds like this is someone that you had already known in your life.
Yes.
How was that experience of like sharing with your friends and your family, like, hey, we are dating, or did you not? And then kind of keep it to
I
yourself?
didn't really share,
Okay, that's a
especially
good
in the
lesson.
first 30 days.
I see.
It was a relationship incubator. Let's just
Yeah,
call it
yeah.
that.
Okay, I like that.
I felt very protected and I wanted to protect him.
Okay.
He also has kids. So I knew there were
Oh,
a lot more at stake here.
yeah, okay.
So what we just said, first 30 days, let's not say anything to our friends, nothing to our family. And then for the next 6 months, we can decide who we want to be exposed to our relationship.
Okay.
And we were very intentional about who we wanted to share this information with.
Yeah.
Not that people were like, oh my gosh, are you dating someone? Are you not? Like it's a big deal.
Right.
But it was more like as soon as you share you are in a relationship with someone with your friends and family, they have an opinion.
Yes.
They do. And
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have to listen, but it
Right.
still influences the way you see this person.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I didn't want any of that.
That is such a poignant thing to say because like I think especially like when it comes to dating now, I mean, I don't know if it's like age related or like I just feel a sense of pressure because of timing.
Mhm.
And like I have a hard time hearing my own voice when there are so many people who, out of love for me, are
Yes.
sharing their opinions about things, right? Or sharing their tips or their experiences. And some of them are like, maybe they have totally different experiences with their partner. Like they met their person in college. So they're trying to be helpful or they're giving
Yes.
feedback. But I'm like, we're not sharing, like, you don't quite know what I'm going through, but even though
No.
you know me. And so I really like this idea of this like 30-day like incubator. So
Yes.
I'm going to take that with me. Thank you.
And you protected your relationship last year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I like whether you thought about some of these kind of like consequences as well, it's still just about there's just something so special when it's just you and this other
Person that knows.
person.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of talk a little bit about this general idea of a love crisis that you and your co-host Julie have. That was kind of like the premise of your book that you created or that you wrote, right?
Right.
Can you talk about that and what specific challenges in dating led you to the work that you do?
We saw that there was a decline in
Yeah.
dating activity. So mentality had already been declining. People were already completely drained by dating.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of people were saying they're taking dating sabbaticals, or
Yeah.
they're saying I'm not taking a break. I'm off the apps. I'm on the apps
Yeah, yeah,
again. I'm
yeah.
off. I'm on the cycle. But the activity, the numbers really prove that there are less people on dating apps,
Mm.
and in fact, there are just less people dating in general.
People are just like, they're basically just giving up a
They're
little
giving up.
bit.
They're
Yeah.
giving up. And in fact, this was actually validated because I went to speak at a college recently with
Yeah.
a group of Asian American writers, and they're like in their English, freshman English class. So they're like 18, 19.
Yeah.
And they were very curious about the dating aspect. And they had asked me, what do you think about dating? And I said, well, raise your hand if you're currently dating, like if you're on a dating app
Yeah.
dating. Only one person raised their hand.
Wow. Okay.
And I said, who's actually actively dating right now? Maybe like a third of the class raised their hand.
Right.
And they were dating people who were convenient to them, another classmate
Mm.
or a neighbor or someone who had been in their orbit. But nobody was actually dating someone new, like new in their
Mm.
life. So that's already validated in the younger generation.
Yeah.
But with all of us, like in our 30s and 40s, you see the numbers declining. I mean, dating apps are freaking out right now.
Yeah, yeah.
We got to do something different because people are leaving the apps, not just going from one app to another. They're leaving all
All
apps.
together. Yeah.
And then we hear this when we talk to our listeners, and I'm sure you've heard the same. I think I'm just going to be alone, or I think I'm
Yes.
just going to not date for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of problematic because we are social animals
Yeah.
and we're meant to be in relationships with each other.
Yeah.
But if we give up on this aspect of relationship building and connection building, then we're just going to be lonelier than ever.
I've gone through my own journey of thinking about this. And I was going to ask you because in your book, How to Be Dateable, you shared that you were in that 5-year relationship and then that you left or when it ended. I'm curious, like, did you have these thoughts where you're just like, oh my God, if this is too much and, like maybe marriage and kids and all of that are not for me. And maybe I am just meant to be an individual person for the rest of my life by myself. Did you ever have those like thoughts or feelings?
I have two ways to answer that question. One is about the marriage and kids.
Mm.
It was abundantly clear to me after this 5-year relationship that I was not married. I was not meant to get married and have kids.
Oh, okay. Talk about that.
So I had this meditation stone back to
Yeah.
kind of like energy and, thinking about the universe and what's meant for you. I had this meditation stone that had the word magic on it.
Mm.
And I went on this amazing solo trip to Greece after that breakup, and I held this meditation stone every day. And one morning I woke up holding the stone, and what was so clear to me was that what is meant for me should be easy. Not that it
Mm.
doesn't take effort,
Yeah.
but it easily appears for me.
I like
That's
that a lot.
what it felt like for me.
Yeah.
Going on that trip was extremely easy
Okay.
because it felt like I was meant to be there.
Yeah.
Even meeting my now partner was extremely easy. He just reappeared in my life.
Mm.
Marriage and kids felt like an uphill battle
Mm.
every day. One, internally, because
Yeah.
I never understood if I really wanted the two things. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
felt like I should.
Yeah. It's the classic example of like kind of running on not default, but like that is the narrative that
Kind of the
society tells
default.
us. Yeah. And especially with our culture, I think that
Yes.
it is even more so oftentimes. Yeah.
Yes. And especially as women,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
feels like you reach a certain age and your
Yes.
identity needs to change.
Mm.
And it needs to be this married woman now, or a
Yeah.
mother,
A
or
mother. Yeah.
someone who you're not an adult until you're married and have kids, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who am I? Like just a kid for
Mm.
life? So I had to really come to terms with the fact that this wasn't appearing very easy for me.
Mm.
So I need to be more open to what is easy for me, what
Yeah.
is in front of me. So that was a shift number one.
Mm.
Shift number two is, and I don't know if you've had this feeling too, when I was single before, I always felt like I had to be single and actively looking.
Mm.
Those two went hand in hand.
Yes, yeah. Especially when people ask you, "Oh, are you dating anyone?" Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, the
Yes.
default is that you should, if you are not with a partner, you should be looking for
You're
your partner.
looking. You're
Yeah.
on the apps.
Yes. Yeah.
Or if you're like, I've always had friends who are in relationships, and when I'm single, they go, "Oh, what about that person?" Like we go
Oh my
out.
gosh,
What
yeah.
about that person?
Or like,
That
I
person
think
is
I
single.
know this like my ex-cousin or whatever.
Yeah,
They're
my
always they see this as like a problem that they
They
are
have
trying
to,
to help you solve.
and
Yeah.
they solve it by introducing you to the one single person they
That
know.
they know based off of no other element of
Nope.
potential
They're
compatibility. Yeah.
breathing and they're
Yeah,
single. You're like, great, thanks.
Yeah.
So then I got into this phase of, for the months I was single, I was like single and not actively looking.
Okay. I like you
And
were
I was
taking a break.
so at peace with that. It
Yeah.
felt really good. And how I arrived at that was I went to Greece, but the first half of the trip was a cruise.
Mm.
And it was a romantic cruise for one.
Oh.
But every night they had a solo traveler meetup.
Oh, okay. That's great.
It was so amazing. People from all over the world. And it was
Yeah.
mostly single people, but some were married and were in relationships. But every solo traveler there who was single was also not looking. They just wanted to have this great experience.
Mm.
So it took the creepiness off the table.
Yeah.
It took like all this unsaid I don't know, just like expectations off the table.
Right,
And I was
right.
like, oh, you can be single and not looking. That is
Mm.
okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
being open to connection is the
Yeah.
second part of that too. So that was the phase I was in. And those are the two conclusions I arrived at.
I really, really like that. I think I have this like internal battle with myself about, and I think you say this like with, it's probably a shared sentiment with a lot of people, is like you obviously want to find, I mean, I can't say for everyone they want to find a partner, but I think most people, like you're saying, I think we're social creatures, whether you want marriage and kids and all of that, that's like a different thing, right?
Yeah.
That's like a package or a way that you express that future. But wanting to find a partner or someone to share your life with, I think is a very human thing.
Yeah.
And it can feel like when you're trying to pursue that journey to getting to your person, how do you know how much effort you should be putting in? Is it okay to take a break? It can get very frustrating. And so I like that. I like how you framed it as it should come with ease, but still have effort behind it.
Yes.
And that is something that, yeah. But before you arrived at this like very wise conclusion, and especially with like just like following the work that you do, you have shared that you were like very actively dating in New York and San Francisco in the earlier years. I feel like that experience can be really draining and really challenging.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could share a little bit about kind of some of the experiences that you had during that period. What were some of the challenges that you had? Were you someone who was like super regimented about your dating? Because I had girlfriends who used to like have Excel sheets and like outfits, because sometimes, especially in the days when the apps were more like prominently featured and, a tool that people used, it could get overwhelming.
Yes. And it was very overwhelming. And I think it's
Yeah.
what's contributing to the love crisis right now.
Mm.
Because we've overdosed.
Ah,
right?
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like now people want to simplify. In
Yes.
fact, we put up a poll on our Instagram that said, what do you prefer, dating one person or multiple people? And most people said they prefer to date one person. But here's the disconnect. When I
Yeah.
was going on like a million dates and just, having a great time in New York,
Yeah.
I just assumed that I had to be dating multiple people
Because that was kind of like how it felt like you had to do it, right?
to
Yeah.
protect yourself.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
put all your eggs in
In
one
one basket,
basket,
yep.
which then made me think that everybody else was dating multiple people, which made me very insecure.
Right.
So on one hand, I'm like trying to rake them in, like,
Yeah.
let's fill the funnel, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
not all eggs in one basket. But then there's like the one person I really like. And if they can't hang out that weekend, I immediately went to, oh, they must be dating other people. They're with others.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my self-worth was very much tied to other people's presumed behavior.
Right, right.
But I didn't know. I didn't validate any of this.
Yeah.
So one of the traps we talk about in our book, How to Be Dateable, is this idea of like the validation trap, which is just, self-worth riding on other people's opinion of you, but also this idea of like a relationship chicken. And I think we're still we're still victim to this in some ways. It's on one hand, you want to be in a relationship. On the other hand, you want to show as little interest as possible, not be the first one to say something.
Yeah.
So that you have the upper hand.
Right, right.
And one great example of this was I was dating someone I really, really liked in New York. It had been like 3 months. And Valentine's Day came around.
Yeah.
And we were both playing relationship chicken because it's like that weird point in a relationship.
Yes.
What do you do? We're like just dating right now. And he said, okay, next week, do you want to hang out on February 13th, 14th, or 15th? He gave me 3 dates.
Oh, okay.
Very like not direct.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And neither of us said something about Valentine's Day, but it was implied. And I chose the 13th. Even though I wanted to hang out with him on the 14th.
Because you didn't want to you didn't want to show that you were more interested or that you would consider him your Valentine.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or I didn't want him to think that I was free on Valentine's Day.
Oh, I see, I see.
Right? What makes you think that I'm not seeing someone else on Valentine's Day? I didn't want to pick the 15th because I didn't want to hear about his Valentine's Day plans.
Oh, I didn't even think about that yeah.
And I picked the 13th because I was like, I'm going to show him such a good time that if he has plans on Valentine's Day, it's going to pale in comparison.
Yeah, okay. I see.
Do you hear all the energy and effort
Yeah.
in that sentence?
There's so many things that you're thinking through. Yes, it is very much the opposite of ease, right? It's strategic, it's planning, it's like forcing.
And it has nothing to do with being a good partner in a relationship.
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship, you would be like, hey, honey, it's Valentine's Day next week, but do you want to hang out the day before?
Right.
You would not think that hard about it.
Yeah.
I was putting all my energy into these mind games of making him feel like I wasn't more interested in him.
Right.
When all I wanted was just to be in a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And that's what I did all throughout my 20s.
If you could go back, or I guess like for any listener out there who is in this experience of still trying to date multiple people at the same time, what advice would you give? Like, is it to then just like be direct and be open? Because then you will also, I guess, I'm just curious, like, what is the way that you should do this?
I would do it in phases. With everything in life, when you feel like, oh, I need to make a decision or I'm trying to pursue something, there's a phase that many of us forego, which is the exploration phase. But it should be somewhat intentional. So you should name it. Like, I'm in this exploration phase.
Yeah.
So I'm going to date multiple people because I'm not really sure yet.
I see.
Right. And I'm going to be investing some time and energy into these people.
Yeah.
But then you move on to the next phase. When you're ready to move on to the next phase, which is deepening connection, I just don't believe you can deepen connection with more than, let's say,
people.
two people at once, like 2 max.
Yeah.
And when you're in that deepening phase, be intentional about that too. You're spending more time. You're spending more quality time. You're spending more quality intentional time together. And then at the end of that phase, it's like, decision-making phase, right? At some point, you got to make a decision.
Right.
Who do I want to spend even more time with? Who do I want in my life even more? Who do I want to integrate more?
Right.
And that should feel like a natural flow. But if people are in the exploration phase and they're not naming it that, it just becomes I'm in the lost phase.
I
Because then you
see.
have no goals.
Right, right.
There's no like direction for you.
So, like, thinking of your example that you gave with the like Valentine's Day situation,
hmm
how would someone in like phase one handle that differently than someone in like phase three?
Yeah. If I were to go back, because I was actually done with the exploration phase by then. I
Yeah.
knew he was someone I wanted to pursue. But if we were still in that exploration phase, I would have said something like, I would really like to spend Valentine's Day with you,
Mm,
if that's what you're implying. I'm not at a stage where I'm ready to be exclusive, but
mm,
I'm ready to see where this goes. So if this is something you're interested in, let's spend Valentine's Day together.
mm.
If that's not the direction you think we're headed and you're still wanting to explore, then let's hang out on the 13th, right? So kind of like be really honest
Yeah.
about what you're trying to show this person
Right.
and not try to imply
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
meaning.
I see. I think that's super helpful, and that's something that I'm trying to practice as I'm like getting back into the dating game is
Mhm.
because I think to your point that relationship chicken or being strategic or trying to be like I want them to want me more, it gets so exhausting and it is an actual intentional like switch in my brain and in my behavior to be okay with being a little bit more vulnerable because it is kind of being vulnerable to
It
share your
is.
cards like that. But I like that you phrase it in a way where it's kind and it might be challenging if you get an answer that's not what you want, but it's better to figure it out sooner than later, right? And to
Yes.
save yourself the headache of like going back and forth and potentially like self-sabotaging or like confusing the person. And
Yeah, and I went through a phase where I was like, I rather keep someone around ambiguously just so I can keep them around
mm,
than to know the answers.
yeah.
But that in the end really hurt me because your
Yeah.
feelings are just going to grow.
Right.
But if you're not getting the clarity that you want, you're just setting yourself up
Yeah.
for major heartbreak. So I think getting it out, kind of front loading those questions, not being, not to interrogate, but to, when you want the answer to something,
Right.
just
Just
ask.
ask. Yeah.
Why are we so bad at asking? We
Yeah.
beat around the bush or we try to be as indirect as possible. But
Yeah.
when we really just want this one answer,
Right.
and we just spend so much time harping on things that just don't matter
Right,
ultimately.
right. I like that. So there's a level of just being okay with being vulnerable, and that helps you to kind of just like cut through everything.
But vulnerable, right? And you
Yeah.
talked about this too, is like vulnerability is not about exposing your weaknesses
Mm,
or this is like, let me just profess my love. That's not all kinds of vulnerability.
mm,
We can start inserting certain levels of vulnerability that can be just as easy and simple as I'm really enjoying spending time with you.
yeah.
And I would love to spend even more time with you.
Mm.
What do you think about that? Right.
That's an important distinction because I think, yeah, vulnerability can go on one end where you're just like sharing too many things of the
Yeah.
wrong, maybe too many like emotional things, past traumas, where that could be overwhelming and not helpful, versus vulnerability where it's just being direct, right? And just
Yes.
sharing what you want. Like, what is your goal? What is it you want? Where do you stand? How do you feel? Or even maybe if it's like, I don't know exactly what I want or how I feel right now, like even just saying that, right?
Yes.
Because I think that was something that I had kind of like, am trying to figure out as I go into the dating process is like sometimes I'm like still trying to gauge how I feel. Like I don't know
Yes.
exactly what I want from this, dynamic yet. But I think even vocalizing that is better than just kind of saying nothing.
And dating you adds this new dimension of you have this public voice.
Yeah.
So sometimes people would probably assume that you would say exactly what you want to say, which is not true. There's
Yeah,
probably
yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of unsaid things for you too because it is vulnerable and you want to protect. So
Yeah.
there's all these assumptions. So your level of vulnerability could be even as early as like the first couple dates, just saying, I know I'm like this public figure. I do talk about my love life, but I am not the one to expose everything like,
Mm.
in the beginning. And I'm still working on really talking about my needs and my feelings.
Mm.
So don't assume that I'm saying everything I want to say.
Ah, interesting. So it's like, because I'm curious sometimes, like how, you know, I've been trying to figure out that balance of like sharing my personal life and my love life on like publicly. And to hear you say kind of how you receive my persona is that I'm someone who's like really confident and knows what I want.
Yes.
Ah, that is not necessarily the case at all.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the assumption when you're
Yeah,
a
yeah.
public figure, is
Just
people assume.
yeah,
They just
regardless of
assume.
what you share, how you share, just the fact that you talk about it or that it's
Yes.
present gives a certain like level of maybe intimidation for the person
It's
too. Yeah.
intimidation, but also they feel like, well, I mean, if Janet can share how she's feeling about X, Y, and Z in her life, she
Yeah.
should be able to share that with me. So
Mm.
if she wants something or she feels something, she would just
She'll
say
just
it.
say it. Yeah.
But you're also human. And
Right,
there's like
right.
this public persona and a private persona.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have to be
The same.
congruent.
Right, right.
And so I think people make a lot of assumptions, right?
Yeah. And is that something that you found for yourself that was helpful in implementing, was being able to communicate clearly like, hey, there is a public me and there is a private me, and this is how the private me likes to handle relationships.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think, with my current partner right now, he was very frightened in the beginning, kind of, because
Yeah.
he's a very private person. And he's like, you're in this dating space.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to be talking about us. And obviously, I feel like you may have to be the teacher because you know more and you've been studying the subject for so long. And I was
Yeah.
like, hold up, no, that is so not the case. Like, I think we learn together.
Yeah.
I can certainly pull more data and observations, but being in the dating space, this is the funny part. I'm like, being a dating expert doesn't mean that I'm good at dating. It means that I have the tools to navigate dating. They're very different.
Yeah.
I'm not a perfect partner. I don't have a perfect relationship.
Yeah.
I never will. And that's not my goal. But being in this space has given me a toolbox to play with so
Yeah.
that when I encounter these conflicts and obstacles, I know how to navigate them.
That's very well put. It's very well put. I want to talk a little bit about this relationship that you're in. You had said that this was someone from your past that came in. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Come back next week where I will share part 2 of our conversation. We dig even deeper and talk about compatibility and connection versus just having a good time together. What makes a date? Like, how do you define a date? How do you know if you're actually on a date versus just hanging out? And also, is chemistry overrated? I think it might be. Come back next week and we will get into it all. Same time, same place. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Living Well or Trying to. If you don't already, please follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It means so much to me that my new episodes will just pop up in your feed. And if you like what you're hearing and seeing, please leave a rating and review. It means so much for a small content creator like myself in this world that is so saturated now to be able to have some feedback from all of you. As always, I so appreciate you. Thank you for lending me your ears, your eyes, your presence, and your attention, especially in today's world when there are so many other places that you could be giving it to. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I hope to catch you on another episode.